I have a lot of ticks, so bear with me for a little. So the polling that looks good so far is Fetterman versus Oz there in Pennsylvania, Warnock versus Walker there in Georgia, Mark Kelly in Arizona looks good, and then you brought up Ohio with Tim Ryan. Um, Kelly and Warnock, obviously, we have them now, so we want to keep those. And then we want to get the Tim Ryan seat. We want to get the Fetterman seat. And then we want to get, if I'm not mistaken, Ron Johnson seat in Wisconsin, right? Um, a couple things. We talked about this with Maya. We talked about this before on the pod. The right wing extremist candidates that the Republicans are throwing out there, like Walker, like Dr. Oz, like JD Vance, I think that's good for us. It really puts the not only the country but those local races. It really puts the voters at the point of attack. It says, hey, do you want this? Do you want Herschel Walker, who's clearly doesn't have all his capacities, who clearly has no idea what he's doing, who's clearly not that smart? Do you really want him? Like, do you really want him? Now, Kemp versus Abrams is a different story because Kemp is a better candidate than Walker is, right? But if you look at Fetterman and Oz, do you really want a guy who lives in New Jersey? Do you really want a guy who goes to the grocery store and embarrasses himself in front of the whole country? Do you really want JD Vance? And so I'm happy that we talked about this. I really prefer when we go against really right-wing extremism. Now, as far as the polling goes, one, I don't believe it. And the reason I don't believe it is because I just can't have that mentality. I think we have a couple more months. A lot could change. Fetterman has had health issues. Like anything could happen to change these races. And so we just have to keep pushing and not pay attention to the polls, because as soon as we take our foot off the pedal, it's not going to look good. Now, as far as polling in general, I really lost a lot of faith in 2020. Now, granted, they were right. A lot of the polling in 2020 was correct, and they had things right on the money. The problem with polling, I find, is I don't no longer believe that people are telling the truth in the polls. We saw in 2020 that Republicans were taking polls and lying just to skew everything. So I don't know how much you could trust the polls. I think you could go on the street. It's like I send you a couple things that Fetterman does. I know Fetterman is problematic, and we're rooting for him in our own way. But I've sent you things where he's campaigning very, very effectively. He, to me, is a person who's campaigning in the Trump world. What I mean by that is, if Trump made campaigning to WWE, Fetterman's playing into that perfectly. And Dr. Oz is the perfect candidate to go after. I think Tim Ryan's doing a very good job of being a quote unquote moderate Democrat and going against Ohio voters. Like, we're campaigning, like, give credit where credit is due. Tim Ryan, Fetterman, Warnock, they're really have great campaigns that are going on. So I just don't want to trust the polls. I just rather let them keep going, let them keep being in the street, let them keep going after voters. And if we keep the Senate as I expect, then we'll be better off. But it's not time now to celebrate. We still got a lot of time.
It would be really great if granted, we're getting the email and the echo chamber, but it'd also be really great if we start seeing movement for both Jerry Beasley in North Carolina and Val Demings in Florida. Those would actually be really, really amazing. But then, I'm also still very optimistic about the House. Um, Look, I think we have to probably start really digging in and looking at a map to see where those pickups are. But if we can hold our own, if we can protect seats, I mean, I think the number of incumbent Democrats that are in danger is either the same or dropping. And now we've not think about it. We're on August recess, or as my friend calls it, the in district work period. They hate being told they're on vacation, but the August recess. They've not really started banging hard on the Inflation Reduction Act. They have a great record to run on. They being both the House and the Senate, they have a great record to run on. And some of the provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, go through immediately. So gas prices are improving. Biden's approval ratings improving. Inflation looks to be stabilizing. Depending on how people play, and we keep talking about, we don't think that the prosecution and investigations of Trump are an electoral strategy, but I don't think they hurt. I don't think we need to be relying on them. But could they move some people a little bit? Um, I'm bullish. I'm becoming more and more bullish. I mean, I'm nervous as hell. And we've got seats that we've got to hold on to. But I'm a, I've always been optimistic about the House, but my early optimism was wishful thinking. I think that I'm hoping that in the coming weeks, I feel like I'm going to go from wishful thinking on the House to having there being some level of data or something quantitatively that will back that up. What is your read right now on the House?
I'll give you that data. I think it exists. I sent you a couple tweets about some pollsters who have said there were some numbers about voter registration. Now, voter registration doesn't necessarily mean that those are going to turn into voters. But let's just think about these numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think there's been an uptick about 40, 50% of women voters in certain states. And it's pretty clear to me that Roe is going to be an issue, if not the biggest issue in 2022 and in 2024. And as you and Maya say, it's like it's one of the issues, but I personally think it should be our main issue. Like we could talk about everything else, but I think we should really go after the idea of Roe.